So the question is, what is a disciple? In Matthew 28, we've been over and over again saying that Jesus, the last words that came out of his mouth before he returned to the Father in heaven, said this: go and make disciples. If you ask 100 people who are followers of Christ what that means, you'll probably get 100 different answers. But one of the things we need to understand, the words and the verses in the Bible have definitions. They mean something. And so if we study them, and especially in the context in which they're written, we have a better shot of understanding what these words and verses and concepts really mean. So I believe with all my heart that the greatest need that we face in 2017 is to understand discipleship and involvement in the disciple-making process. Only a handful of churches in the United States of America are involved in a ministry of multiplication. And so I really believe that if we want to make a difference that's going to be profound in our country, we need to take God's Son seriously when he said, go and make disciple makers. So all I want to talk about for a few minutes today is this. What a disciple is will determine what a disciple does. Let me say it again. What a disciple is will determine what a disciple does. So it's always intrigued me in terms of thinking about the leadership style of Jesus. For example, you go to Matthew 28 and he says, go therefore into all the world and make disciples. So the last words he gives, these marching orders to change the planet by reproducing disciple makers. But if you back up to chapter 25 of Matthew, Jesus told his disciples, he said, now listen, I'm going to be arrested, I'm going to be put on a cross, I'm going to die, I'm going to be buried, and then I'm going to be raised from the dead. Then, going back to Matthew 28, he gives that great challenge to go into all the world and make disciples. So my question is, what did he do when he was with his disciples so that when he gave that great command to go into all the world, make disciples, and all heck broke loose because he was now gone and returned to the Father, how did the disciples keep from ducking and running or folding up like an accordion? Well, I think what you got to do is you got to go back to Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7 are known as the Sermon on the Mount. The first chapter 5, the first 12 verses are what we call the Beatitudes. I call them the B-attitudes. Let's take a couple. So the first one, he says, blessed are the poor in spirit. That means blessed, well off, to be envied are those who are willing to admit their spiritual bankruptcy before a holy God, not only initially, but continually. Then you go to the next one, he says, blessed are those who mourn. Basically what that means, well off, to be envied. Blessed are those who are willing to see their sin and be sorry enough to quit it. Then he goes to another one. Blessed are the meek, not the weak, but the meek, which primarily means two things. Number one, a person that is under God's control, and number two, a person that is teachable. So what he does in Matthew 5, 6, and 7, he gets out his spiritual scalpel and digs down deep into the disciples' lives to help them from the inside out to develop his character. So, simply want to say this, that if you are in the process of allowing him to work on you from the inside out, you need to know he is developing something in you that you can't develop in and of yourself and on your own. And the result of that will be an allegiance to him and a willingness to do what he's called us to do. And one of the most important things he's called us to do is in Matthew 28, to go therefore into all the world and make disciple makers. Now next time we'll take this a little bit further in terms of what a disciple is, but let me leave you with this. I would encourage you to begin to study the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, in earnest. And I would encourage you to maybe take Matthew and start with that and take 2 months and dig in deep, read it through several times, and get out a journal and begin to look up words and write down your questions and see what Jesus did to develop his disciples. Because what he was doing was developing them from the inside out. And that's the same thing he wants to do in you and me. You can't lead another person as you disciple them any further than you've gone yourself. So let him do his amazing work in you. You think about that.